Hello everyone. In my previous lecture, I discussed in detail the time before Anglo-Saxon period. In this lecture, I'll discuss in detail the Anglo-Saxon period which stretches from 449 till 1066. So I'll discuss in detail that where these Germanic tribes settled in Britain, what was their culture and tradition, and what language they spoke. I'll also discuss that what was their early religion and how they converted to Christianity. So keep watching and enjoy learning. Let's discuss in detail. Anglo-Saxon period. The Anglo-Saxon period began around 449, so that is the middle of 5th century, when Germanic tribes such as Angles, Saxon, Jute and Frisians. So these tribes they invaded and they settled in different parts of Britain. But remember that these settlements did not happen in a day, but it took decades, right? So these tribes, the most famous ones, Anglo Saxon and Jutes, but there was also Frisians. So they migrated from where this is the place of their migration. That was Northern Europe, or we can also call it continental Europe. So from here they migrated, and these tribes collectively, Anglo-Saxon, Jute and Frisians, they are called Germanic tribes, and they invaded somewhere in 449, right? And then they settled in the eastern and southern coast of Britain. So you have to remember these some words which I bolded, right? Eastern and southern coast of Britain. So this is the place where they settled, right? Where they came from? They came from Northern Europe or continental Europe. And collectively these tribes are known as Germanic tribes. Now this invasion didn't happen all at once, but took place gradually over several decades. As I told, that this settlement and this invasion did not happen in a day, but it took decades. Resistance from Britons. There was some resistance from Britain, right, to retreat these Germanic tribes. But ultimately, the Britons were retreated, right, because they did not have force. As I discussed in my previous lecture that before Anglo-Saxon, there were Roman soldiers in Britain. So the Roman withdrew their soldiers to protect the Roman Empire. So this place, what we call Britain, became vulnerable for foreign invasion. And thus Anglo-Saxon, they attacked and they invaded Britain. So there was some resistance from the Britain, right? Now the native Britons, possibly led by Christian commander named Arthur. So we do not know much about history because there isn't like we can't say certainly there was Arthur, but probably the name of this commander who was a Christian one, his name was Arthur. So he led these Britons and fought several battles to defend the land. Despite their efforts, they were eventually defeated and forced to retreat too. So they wanted to defend the Britain. Okay, they wanted to retreat the Anglo-Saxon, but ultimately they were retreated. Retreated mean they moved back to escape. So these Britain, they escaped to the different parts of the Britain and somewhere else. For example, they retreated to Cornwall and Wales, right? This is western parts of Britain. They moved there. They escaped there because of the Anglo-Saxon. And they moved to Scotland where Gaels from Ireland were also sitting. right? And they moved to Brittany, regions on the west coast of continental Europe. So they retreated to Brittany, they retreated to Scotland, and they retreated to Cornwall and Wales, right? Now, impact on the Celtic culture. Celtics are the people of Britain who were living on this land, right? Britain before the arrival of Anglo Saxon. So, in the southern and central Britain, so you have to focus on these bolded words. In the southern and central Britain, Celtic culture nearly disappeared, replaced by Anglo-Saxon tradition and language. So where they came, these Anglo-Saxon tribes in the southern part of Britain and the central part of the Britain, there existed a culture. And this culture was known as Celtic culture. This Celtic culture disappeared and was replaced by the tradition and language spoken by Anglo-Saxon. Now, over time, the Germanic tribes settled and began to organize themselves into confederation, laying the foundation for what became early England. So these Germanic tribes settled in different parts of Britain and they combined them, they united them. And after this unification, they gave them a name, right? That was England. And it became a confederation, union of the different parts of the Britain. So, what parts were there we will discuss on the coming slide. Now, the Anglo-Saxon, wait for a while, okay, the Anglo-Saxons heptarchy, and the culture evaluations. After settling in Britain, the Germanic tribes gradually organized themselves into 7 kingdoms known as heptarchy. Heptarchy or heptarchy. So what was heptarchy? Heptarchy was like the unification, okay, or the unity of the 7 kingdoms where these Anglo-Saxons settled. For example, in Kent, ruled by the Jutes, that was the southern part of, the southeast part of the Britain. So the Jutes, they settled in Kent, and Kent was located in the southeast of Britain. One of the tribe. So Jutes was one of the tribe of Germanic tribes. And within we have Sussex, Essex, and Wessex. These are also the parts of the Great Britain ruled by the Saxon, west and the south. So in the west and the south, there were some regions, Sussex, Essex, and Wessex. These were ruled by the Saxon, which was also one of the tribe of Germanic tribes. And then we have East Anglia, Mercia, and Northumbria, ruled by the Angles, and these parts were located in the north and the east, still located in the north and the east of the Britain. So the major part of the Britain was occupied, okay, or the major part of the Great Britain we can find the settlement of the Angles people. That's why the name of the England later and also derived from these Angles. The land of Angles, Angle Lane, or later on it became England. So you can see here the 7 kingdoms. One is Kent, second Sussex, Essex, and Wessex. 4, and then we have East Anglia. This is 5 number. And then we have Mercia, that is second, 6th number, and then we have Northumbria, this is the 7th one. So these 7 kingdoms were there, and these 7 kingdoms were ruled by different tribes who invaded from the North Sea, okay, or continental Europe. And they settled here. And where these different tribes they settled in Kent, in Sussex, Essex, Wessex, East Anglia, Mercia, and Northumbria. right? So this is okay, the overall detailed map of Anglo-Saxon settlement. Now, the Angles, which was the dominant and the largest tribe of Germanic one. Since the Angles were the dominant in early history and the land of Germanic settlement became known as Angle land, which eventually evolved into England. So the name England actually it has origin or originated from the Angles, the land of Angle, because they were dominant and they occupied a major part of the Britain. So it became the later on the land of Angles became England. So the people were called English. These people were called English, the people of England. But modern scholars use the term Anglo-Saxon to describe the people and culture of this period. So when we discuss the period and the culture of this period, so we call it Anglo-Saxon. And the people of this England was called English people. Now we will discuss the Anglo-Saxon life and beliefs. The early Anglo-Saxon were seafaring warriors. So they would travel by sea and then you see they would invade, right? And so this was okay. They were warriors. They were warrior of the what? Of the seafaring. Seafarer warriors. They would travel by sea in their boats and then they were attacked. Right? So this was the early tradition and life of Anglo-Saxon, who lived harsh and violent lives. Their life was not easy. It was harsh and the life was violent life. So you can see bold Anglo-Saxon. Who were they? They were seafaring warriors. Travel by sea in their different boats and they were warriors. And they lived harsh life and violently they live. So their pagan religion. So in the past, anybody who did not believe any major religion, for example, Christianity, they would be known as pagan. So these people were called also pagan. So their pagan religion emphasize what? Like fate. Okay, the religion emphasized on fate. And they admired heroic warrior who were destined to win in battle. So these people admired their heroic warrior and they took inspiration from them. However, as they settled into Britain, their way of life changed. When these people who migrated from the continental Europe in early life, they were very much violent, they were warrior, seafarer warrior, but their life changed when they settled in Britain. How their life changed? Their life changed because of what? When they came to England, they started cultivation, they started agriculture, they grow their own land. So you can see here that they became agriculture people and touching on farming rather than warfare. So now they rarely fought. Their focus was on agriculture and they became different people now. So they grew less violent, as I told, and more organized and more civilized. Before that, they were not civilized. Before that, they were not organized. Before that, they were violent. So they became less violent. They became organized, more organized, and they became more civilized when they started agriculture, right? So a major influence in this transformation was no doubt Christianity. When they became, because Christianity was the religion of peace, right? So Christianity taught them how to be peaceful, right? To adopt a peaceful life and to have their own their own way of like livelihood. So they started agriculture, they grow their lands after they adopted Christianity. So Christianity transformed the life of these Anglo-Saxon tribes and they became civilized now, which begin spreadings in the late 6th century. What Christianity started to spread in Britain in the late 6th century after we can see the invasion of great Anglo-Saxon tribes. So helping to shape Anglo-Saxon society into a more structured and unified culture. So the role of Christianity cannot be denied in term with how they made these Anglo-Saxon civilized people, cultured people, and how we see they became less violent, right? So there is a great role of Christianity in the life of Anglo-Saxon tribes. The growth of Christianity in Britain. Although the Roman Empire collapsed somewhere in the 5th century, right? And Christianity never fully disappeared from the British because Christianity was introduced in Britain by the Romans. So the Roman Empire collapsed. After the collapse of the Roman Empire, Christianity did not disappear from the land of Britain or British Isles. It continued to spread and evolve, playing a key role in shaping Anglo-Saxon culture. What? Christianity. Early Christian influence. In the 5th century, a Romanized Britain, his name was Saint Patrick, right? Converted Ireland, Gaels to Christianity. So the people who were living in Ireland was Gaels. Gaels had roots in Britain, okay, or in Celtic. So these people became Christian. Gaels people who were living in Ireland, they became Christian. They converted to Christianity because of the Roman saint. His name was Saint Patrick. Now, as the Gaels colonized Scotland, we're talking about Gael. When the Gael colonized Scotland, they brought Christianity with them. So after that, the Ireland, the Scotland also became Christian because Christianity was brought to Scotland by the Gaels, who already converted to Christianity. Now, missionaries from Lona, a small island off Scotland's coast, right? Lona, that was off from the coast of Scotland, spread the faith to the Picts and Angles in northern Britain. Now, Christianity also arrived on the land of Anglo-Saxon to the Picts people and Angles people who were living where in Britain. See, missionaries, okay, first we see Ireland, then we see Scotland, and then we see missionaries from Luna, that was a small island off Scotland coast. In a distance of Scotland coast, there was an area, and this small area was known as Luna. So missionaries from Luna spread the fact to the Picts and Angles in the northern Britain. So now Christianity arrived to the northern Britain, to the people of the Picts of the Great Britain, and the people who migrated from continental Europe, what we know as Anglo-Saxon Angles. So Christianity arrived here also in Britain now. Roman influence and rapid expansion. In 599, that is the end of the 6th century, a Roman missionary named Augustine arrived in Kent. Now you can see that is Kent now, where the Jews settled there. So Christianity arrived from the northern part of the Britain, right? And there were people like Picts, there were people like Angles, Okay, now after that, now we can see that Christianity also arrived to Kent, where the Jutes ruled, and established a monastery at Canterbury. Now there is a Canterbury, okay, a place Canterbury in England where a monastery was constructed. Now from there Christianity spread quickly now when it arrived to Kent, quickly now, and by 690 all the Britain was at least nominally Christians. When? That was over 100 years. 597, right? And then 690. So at the end of 7th century, nominally all the Britain became what? Christian state now. Now, Christianity as a cultural force. Monasteries became centers of learning, art, and social activity. So this is actually also the beginning of the Dark Age, where these monastery, the church, the monastery, they became the center of learning, art, and social activity. So everything was controlled by the religion. That was Christianity. And if you wanted to learn, you would have to go to the church because it was the center of learning, center of art, center of social activity. So everything was controlled by the church. And this was actually the beginning or the start of the Dark Ages in Europe. After the fall of the Roman Empire, so you see that the Roman had great civilization. And the center of the learning was not monastery in Roman Empire, right? Because there was exploration, scientific explorations. You see that construction was there, and knowledge and philosophy. So there was learning in Roman Empire also, but the center was not machinery. But when it arrived to England, so it became the center of learning after the fall of the Roman Empire. So the book of Kells and eliminated gospel book, right? A Bible book. It was eliminated one. There were some pictures, art. So was created in Irish monastery. Was created in the Irish monastery in the late 8th century, right? That was what? There was book of Kells. It was an eliminated gospel book, Bible book. It was created in the Irish monastery. It was kept there in the 8th century. Now, another development was that on Lindisfarne, a small island of Northumbria. So, from the a little distance of Northumbria, in a distance of Northumbria, there was a land, there was an area, and that was known as Lindisfarne. Right? So there was the monk and he produced the Lindisfarne's gospel. Okay? A monk was there. He produced a gospel which was known as Lindisfarne's. So one of the most beautiful Bible manuscript of the time of that time. So the focus was Christianity and religion. Now, through missionary efforts, monasteries, and artistic achievements, Christianity transformed Britain, influenced its culture, education, and society. So we can see, okay, this influence of Christianity on the British culture and education and society overall. It transformed them on the one hand, but on the other hand, we can see this was a dark age, the beginning of dark age when everything was controlled, held by what? By the Roman Catholic Church, right? And also in other parts of the Europe, but we are not referring to those parts of the Europe. We are focusing on the Britain, where Anglo-Saxon settled there. So this is the whole story of Anglo-Saxon, that how they invaded, how they arrived, how they settled, where they settled, what was their culture, what was their religion, how they converted into Christianity, how Christianity spread in Britain from Ireland to Scotland, from Scotland to Northern England, and from Northern England to Kent, and then from all parts of Great Britain. So thank you so much. It was all about the Anglo-Saxon period. We will discuss more. So please, you must provide your valuable comment in comment section. Thank you so much.